I have nothing to give you, and it is worse than that. There is no real you. There is no real I. It is just what appears to be happening. There is no real time. There is no real past, no real future, and no real entity that can live in past and future, or to which past or future can apply. There is only what appear to be happening. There is nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, no purpose, no goal, no destination, no bondage, no salvation, no slavery, no freedom. It is only what appears to be happening. It is neither real nor it is unreal. There is nowhere to get to, and no one that can get there. There is no free will, there is no choice, and there is no real entity to which free will or choice can apply. Ultimately, nothing real is happening. Nothing real can truly happen. There can be a feeling, there can be a thought, there can be a belief, there can be an illusion of being an entity, of being an I, and there can be a story making, just as in the night there can be a dream. In that dream, in that story, that imagined I character can go through events, can experience things, things can happen to it, it can go through time, it can have experience of past, future, but beyond that story, beyond that dream, that character has no real existence, no reality. And that is all that can happen. It can happen now or it can disappear. That dreaming, that story, that storytelling is either happening now or it is not. And that is all to it. When this story is happening, in that story, there is time, there is past, there is future, there is a character identified as I, and there are other characters identified as Ramana, Tole, my daughter, my sister, my wife, my friend, my enemy, my dad, mom, Trump, Biden, Hillary, Putin, and that story, there are relationships, there are emotions, attachments, detachments. Once that story drops, everything drops. Because beyond that story, outside that story, none of its characters, none of its narrative, none of its relationships have any meaning, any purpose, any reality. There could be a strong investment in this story, in this dream. There could be a strong attachment to it. There could be a strong resistance against seeing this story as false, as illusory, because from inside we might know that this me, this I, this character actually does not exist. And if we let the story fall, if we allow the dream to disappear, we ourselves realize that this I, this me, will be over because it is nothing more than a solidified, crystallized belief. And only way we can sustain it is through continuous thinking, continuous storytelling, continuous judging, finding things to criticize, finding things to oppose, finding something to fight against, finding something to disagree with. More we disagree with something, more we can criticize something, more we oppose something, a stronger, more real this I entity feels, more alive we become, more powerful our belief in this I entity becomes. And if the other party also responds, if somebody responds to our criticism of them, that's even better. That really starts the war. That really starts the fight. And now we are really living. Once that happens, we get really deeply invested in this story. And once we get deeply invested in this story, we lose the power, we lose the space, we lose the opportunity to step outside, to step away and watch. Because the moment we watch, the moment we step out, the story falls. So, what is there to do? In reality, there is nothing real to do because nothing real is happening and there is no real entity to which anything can happen. There is no real entity that was ever born. There is no real entity that can ever die. There is no real entity that is changing or going through things. There can be an appearance of there can be an appearance of such an entity. There can be a belief in being an entity which was born on certain date, which is going to die on certain date, and which is going through certain conditions. But once that thinking stops, once that story drops, once that dreams falls, there is nothing left. Because that entire belief, that entire narrative, that entire story, entire dream has no real existence. And that's why all of us are so busy constantly thinking because in order to keep this story alive, in order to keep believing in this story, in this character, in this entity, we need to keep it constantly supporting. We need to keep it constantly enforcing. We need to constantly think about it, constantly fuel it. Without our support, without our constant involvement, without our constant active belief, this story cannot survive. And this me character cannot survive. And this story of my life, my wife, my child, my daughter, my son, my disease, my death, my bank account cannot survive either. This is a make believe story. This is an illusion, and we are all playing it together. We are playing it inside ourselves by constantly thinking, by constantly making this a story, by constantly dreaming. And we are supporting each other by constantly enforcing this story, this narrative into each other's mind. Other than that, there is nothing to it. This is just a thought, belief, dreaming based narrative. When thinking drops, its reality is revealed. There is nothing happening. There is nothing happening outside the thinking, outside the story, outside the dream, outside the sense, experience, and interpretation. It is all just an appearance just an experience, an interpretation, a story. And this can be seen right now. If you drop thinking even for a second, even for a fraction of second, the entire story, the entire narrative, the entire I, and all its relationships, all its stories, all its pain, all its conflicts, struggles, problems, drop instantly